Hi everyone, my name is Hui. Today I'm going to talk about an old Chinese history called the Great Leap Forward from 1958 to 1960 under the Chinese Communist rule. And my presentation may be a little bit different from you guys because the YouTube thing doesn't work for me and I try a lot of times, so I chose this way. I hope you guys can understand what I'm going to talk about. And this man in the picture was Chairman Mao. I will mention him in my presentation. There was a small outline of my presentation. The first part will be the background of the Great Leap Forward, and the second and third part will be the damages that the Great Leap Forward caused, and then the conclusion. Here is the background. There were some key events in 1950s. China was established in 1949, and it took about 2 years to start the economic recovery of the nation and to bring the economy under central control with immature government agencies in place to start the process of the central planning. The Chinese government got a lot of international support, especially the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union gave the Chinese people the technical support, which helped the Chinese government to complete the first 5-year plan of the national economic development in 1957. After the first 5-year plan succeed, the Chinese government, especially our leader, Chairman Mao, he thought we need more and we need to move on. So he decided another 5-year plan, which was the Great Leap Forward. Here is the briefly description of the second 5-year plan. The Chairman Mao had traveled all over the country and concluded that the Chinese people capable of anything, and he thought there were two primary things that we should do. The one is industry and second one is the agriculture. And Chairman Mao had announcement to all over the country. He said, we need another 5-year plan to improve our economy. And Chairman Mao aimed to overtake all the capitalist countries in the very short time and become one of the richest and powerful country in the world. At that time, he didn't notice that the objective economic law and just the over high enthusiasm. So I think that was the start. That was the wrong start. Here is the picture of the Chinese heavy industry factory. This picture was taken in Anshan in 1950s, and in a lot of major cities in China, they did have a lot of big heavy industry factories in their city. Like my city, we still have that the factory in our city. During this movement, almost all the Chinese people needed to move outside and needed to produce the steel to the country because the Chinese government need a certain amount of the steel So no matter the women or men, they went outside to do the steel, and cause they didn't have the machine to make that, so they did that. They did this handmade furnace, to make steels to give the country. Here is a closer picture of the handmade furnace. See, that man was using that to make steel, and you can see this handmade furnace was very poor and weak. It didn't make the good steel from that poor thing. Although the industry revolution have a lot of successful, like they got a lot of steel, but we also had a lot of problem, like many thousands of workers were injured after working long hours and falling asleep at their jobs. And also the steel produced by the backyard furnace was often too weak. Like I mentioned the previous picture, the furnace was often too weak to be of any use and couldn't be used in the constructions. Buildings constructed by those substandard steel didn't last long, so that was the kind of fail. On the other hand, there were a lot of damages on the agriculture movement. Firstly is the land areas were decreasing, and there was a sharply decrease on agricultural productivity. Also, agricultural lands were occupied by industry for the making steel thing, which caused the sharp decline in agricultural production capacity. And also, I think the most worst part is there was a food shortage happened there at that time, and the people were starving during that time. You guys may be confused why we made the agriculture movement, but we still went into the starvation. Cause from per unit area of grain output, the grain yield was increasing year by year, but due to the decreasing land area and the decreasing agricultural productivity, the total grain production didn't increase in 1958, and there were 20 to 30 million people died because of that in 1960s. I think it's more than 30 million people died. See the picture, the children in that picture were poor, and I think they were so hungry. And what's the problem with the Great Leap Forward? The starting point of the Great Leap Forward was to change the backward Chinese economy and the Chinese culture, but the Chinese government ignored the objective economic law, which was impossible to quickly change Chinese economic position, and also the Chinese leaders' wrong ideology and over high enthusiasm, so they were unwilling to face the reality of the Great Leap Forward. But in 1960, the Chinese Communist Party began to correct the mistakes that the Great Leap Forward made, and the Great Leap Forward movement was finally stopped. Moreover, there was a Central Working Conference in 1962. The Chinese government and also a lot of leaders from all over the province, they go together and do the criticism and self-criticism. I know the Great Leap Forward was a disaster, but it also a lesson for the people, for the further future, for the old, for our young generation to listen, to learn. We need to face the reality of the society, I think. Here is the bibliography that I searched the sources from the internet or book. If you guys are interested, I can send a link to you. And thank you for listening.